Hey, good morning. It's been a while. I wanted to touch base. Some of you, particularly my former university students, have been on my mind and heart lately, and this is geared particularly towards you, although not exclusively. I appreciate the people that have stuck with the channel. I know I've been dark for a while, but I have been busy. I've been probably put this on. I've been growing my garden. Brought in a dozen nice tomatoes and a couple cucumbers yesterday, and I've been getting myself back in shape. Dropped about 15 pounds and working on my flexibility, and I'm feeling pretty good with that. Um, Being a grandpa, as much as my kids will allow that to happen, and trying to be a good husband. And so that's kind of where it's at. But I want to talk to you a little bit about, since most of you who follow me are local, like within 50 miles of where I'm sitting right now, um, I want to let you know that we, meaning my friends and I, are in the process of putting together a second emergency preparedness get together upstairs at Steve's Pizza. I haven't set a date yet, um, but if you're on the mailing list, I will definitely be putting that out. This is not a paid event. I'm not going to be making any cash off of this. It's a chance for people who are like-minded, who maybe they call themselves preppers, maybe they just follow what grandma did or great grandmas, um, which is preparing for a rainy day. And they're preparing, they see a storm on the horizon. And I have some sources that I follow, and most of them are informational sources, some of them are intelligence sources. What's the difference? Information is there is a storm and a drought in, I don't know, Wyoming, all right, 1,500 miles from where I am. That's information. Okay, file that away. Intelligence. There is a big thunderstorm approaching the Mississippi River from the west, a dozen miles from where I'm sitting. And that is verifiable and actionable information. There is stuff where I can take that info and use it to batten down my hatches, get the laundry off the line, and be prepared to take shelter if necessary. So that's the difference between information and intel. All intelligence is information, not all information is intelligence. So that's where that's coming from. But I wanted to ask you folks, what are you doing? Unless you've been living in a cave on Mars with your eyes closed and your fingers in your ears, you know that things are getting a little dicey, and they're going to get a little dicier. Uh, Inflation has been increasing, even though our president is saying it's no big deal. But your dollar buys a little less every week when you go to the store. So I've been converting some of my dollars into tangible resources, things that will not depreciate, things that will keep. We could say that it falls under the general heading of bullets, beans, and band-aids, but basically things that we need so that if, I'll give you an example. Remember last year when people were freaking out over not having enough toilet paper? Guess where I was? Not freaking out because I already had enough toilet paper. It isn't hoarding when it is easy to obtain for anybody to have. And I don't have a room stacked with butt wipe, but I do have enough where if I needed to go for a while without going to the store to buy toilet paper, among other things, I could do that. My wife thinks I'm a little crazy, but she knows that I do what I do for her and for myself and for my family. And she kind of gives it tacit approval, meaning she pretends not to see the things that I have stored up. How about you? Are you one of the majority of Americans that's got 3 days worth of food in your fridge, and after that you have to go to the store? Maybe you should be adjusting that tactic a little bit. Maybe you should be buying an extra couple. I'm thinking again, college level, right? College level income. If you were making enough money to, spend all that you had on everything you needed, then you probably wouldn't have to go to college because you'd already be doing whatever it is that allows you to live that way. But you go to the store, you buy a can of soup, you buy a bag of beans, you buy a bag of rice, and you buy an extra can of soup, and an extra bag of beans, and an extra can of rice. And you put that in a 5-gallon bucket. They sell food grade buckets and gamma seals, which are airtight lids, at Menards. And you put a little in there every week. And when that bucket's full, you seal that bucket and you start filling another bucket. What's the status of your gas tank right now? Do you have stored gas? Or are you simply making sure that you're topped off? You should not be running on fumes. In fact, you should not be running below 3/4 of a tank of gas in any of your vehicles. What kind of shape is your vehicle in? Are you keeping up regular maintenance? Speaking of regular maintenance, what kind of shape are you in? How far and fast could you move if you had to go, I don't know. The way I think of it is from Platteville to my house, 7 miles. Could I do that at a quick run, carrying my day bag, which is around 15 pounds, on my back, and arrive fit and healthy? Are you capable of that? How much do you exercise? What do you do to stay in shape? I mean, these are things that will serve you well if and when, as many sources are predicting, things get a little rough this fall. You can define roughness as anything that falls into your definition. My definition of roughness is not a zombie biker apocalypse, but food, gasoline, supplies becoming expensive to the point where it begins to go out of the reach of certain people in certain income levels, where crime increases, law enforcement and emergency services become overtaxed. Not saying they're going away. I know if I call 911 that, depending on what I need, a fire truck or a deputy or, an ambulance can be in my driveway eventually. But I also know, because I live in the country, that minimum response time for either of those things is 15 minutes. 15 minutes is a long time between the time something scares you enough to call 911 and the time those people show up. You're basically your own first responder. Those professionals, God love them, I used to be one, they are actually the second responder. What you do between the time you call 911 and the time they arrive determines whether you are rescuable, which is what you do with living people, or recoverable, which is what you do with people who are not living. So, what are you doing? I'm not trying to scare you, I'm just asking you to do a little soul searching. And once I get the date for this emergency preparedness, this is what I have in mind for this. I have some friends in my group who were thinking of just getting together. It's a chance for people to introduce themselves to each other. I'm not going to be standing up in the front of the room lecturing. I'll probably do a brief introduction, but it's a chance for people to touch antennas and figure out, maybe you have some friendships that you can develop. People who have things that can make your life easier, and in return, you can make life easier for them. We call that a mutual aid group. My fingernails are filthy. I've been working on getting my motorcycle running again. 40-year-old motorcycles, like 60-year-old men, they need regular upkeep, otherwise some major work needs to be done. So that's what's happening there. Anyway, when that date comes, I'll make sure, maybe I'll put a quick blurb on the YouTube, but know that this is a time to start getting ready. And if you're just starting getting ready, you're not lost, but you're behind the curve. And, if you've got 3 days worth of food, work on a week's worth of food. Once you've got a week's worth of food, this is just general, all right? Food is the example that I'm using. Have you gotten your teeth checked lately? That may be an issue at some point, getting in to see a dentist. When was your last physical? What kind of medications are you on? I know that's none of my business. You don't have to tell me that, but I do know that 1/3 of the population is on some sort of medication, either for pain or for things like depression, things like that, um, ideally you would get off those meds. I've done it. I know that it can be done. I was on some pretty powerful pain meds for neuropathy in my feet. I think a lot of it has to do with some allergies that I've adjusted to cope with in terms of what I eat and how I prepare it. Um, what are you doing to get off those pain meds and those antidepressants? Are there things that you can do? Think about that. Start working on it. Because, maybe at some point, because supply lines dry up, you won't be able to get those things regularly. Might want to have a talk with your doctor and see if that doc will prescribe a couple of months out into the future for that. I know that if it's not a controlled substances, they're usually pretty good with that. If not, maybe you need to find another doctor. But, find a way to cope with that. Do not be one of the helpless masses, and make sure that, and when you have yourself taken care of, you have more of the option to help others. So, we're not talking about dropping trees across the driveway and posting armed guards at the gate, but what I am saying is that I will not take a mouthful of rice out of my grandchildren's mouth and give it to somebody who could have been preparing for this disaster, whatever it is, and chose not to because they wanted to get their new iPhone, or because, they just didn't want to think about it. Denial is a powerful drug, and the withdrawals are nasty. So get over that. If things scare you, there's two ways to deal with it. There's denial, which doesn't get rid of the little voice in your head just before you fall asleep saying, yeah, but what if? Sounding like Biden whispering, right? Or you can learn everything you can about the thing that scares you and work to mitigate that. If I were, that's why I wear seatbelts. That's why I have a fire extinguisher in my house. That's why I'm trained in basic wilderness first aid and CPR. Used to be a tactical medic. Most of the stuff they taught those guys is Boy Scout first aid, learning to do it under dangerous circumstances. That's what's the difference between an EMT and a SWAT medic. Make some changes, make some adjustments, do some soul searching. And I wish you the best. I'll be back probably in a few days once I get that meetup scheduled. But by all means, come say hi, especially my former students. I miss you. I do not miss the politics of the university. I think my life is a lot less stressful when I'm no longer dealing with the social justice crowd. But I miss my students. So if you're among those who are staying with me and watching these videos from time to time, come see me once I get that date put together. And I will see you then. Take care.